Hello and welcome to the Rewrite Your Story podcast. If you are someone who is looking to take power back into your life and be in control of your destiny, then this is for you. This podcast was created to empower others by sharing the tools that have truly transformed my life. So sit back, relax, and let's start rewriting your story today. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Rewrite Your Story podcast. As mentioned in previous episodes, we have an amazing guest today. She's actually the first guest that I have on this podcast, so I'm really excited to introduce you all to someone who is not only great at their profession and here as a resource for you, but also someone that is a great friend of mine. So without further ado, I want to welcome Abby to the podcast and to say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Now, Abby, I know a lot of these people are going to be listening and kind of wonder, who's this person? What's she here about? What's she doing? But before we get into the who you are and the what and the why, I want to ask you a particular question. And this is a question that I will be asking everybody who I talk to on the podcast. So let me pick your brain for a second. So Abby, what is the one thing that you have or that you do that makes you feel empowered in your life?
Okay. I think it's setting my intentions, like really clearly knowing what I want in everything. So like if I go into a diet, let's make it really easy. If I go into a diet, I need to know. It's something that we're all thinking about constantly. Yeah. But if I'm thinking I want to lose weight, then I need to tell myself, this is how much I want to lose. This is how much I want it. These are the routes that I'm going to go to make it happen. And then when I'm faced with temptation or distraction, it doesn't matter because my mind's already set and I don't even have to think about it. So it's just pre-thinking the things that are important to me.
I like that. And when you pre-think, do you also document it? Do you write it down? Like, are you one of those people that if you tell yourself, you stick to it? Are you like me and you're like, oh yeah, I told myself that, but I forget? Like, I'm sure a lot of people forget. I definitely do. How do you keep yourself accountable to it?
Okay, so I don't think it works unless I've like fully done it. So I need to have that conversation with myself fully. And sometimes that is writing it down, and sometimes that's just sitting for half an hour and really thinking. And it seems like a lot for every little decision in life, but it's the important things. So it's not necessarily diet. It's, we talked about relationships the other day. It's who you want to meet. It's who you want to attract in your life. It's what you want out of your career. So these things are big things and they deserve your attention. So setting purposeful intentions for each choice in my life really helps me.
I love that. I've definitely found value in that recently as well. Like I've started doing a lot of meditation. I totally get what you're saying. Like for me, if I just say it, I'm not accountable. But like you say, you sit with yourself for a half hour and just go through that repetition. You instill that into you, almost make it like a mantra in a way. Or you write your to-do list and
and you think about it to the point where you've already seen it happen. You've already seen the achievement. You know what it looks like. You don't need to question it. You know the outcome and you just need to move towards it.
That's really cool. So do you start with like the end goal and then break it down from there? Like this is where I want to be, so what I need to do to get there? Or do you do like this is what I want to do?
I nearly just think this is where I'll be. And I don't think this is where I want to be. I think this is where I will be.
Awesome.
So I set the success and then I don't even plan it necessarily. Some things I do. Some things I think I need a bit of a pathway to it.
Yeah.
But I think as long as I've seen the success, I'll maybe set a time limit for it. so that I know when I'm supposed to achieve. And with that so clearly in my mind, it's easier to work towards.
I love it. I love it. So that was beautiful. It's really nice to kind of hear you break it down like that. And these things these are things that people probably do in their life or want to do, but they're just some small, simple actions that you just kind of forget. Like, how do you achieve something if you don't actually work towards it? So that's awesome, and hopefully some of you guys might want to give this a try too. I'm sure in other episodes we'll definitely go into things like that in more depth, and definitely get people on. Me, who knows, maybe Abby will come back for another episode and we can dive into that a bit deeper. But that is not what she's here about today. Today we are here to talk about a few other things. So I know some of you guys may know Abby, and you'll also know how we know each other. But for those who don't, Abby and I have known each other for about 6 years.
Yeah, probably about right.
That's a long time. You've put up with me for 6 years. Well done. Well done.
Yes and no.
Well, I suppose it helped. I've lived away and you've lived away, so you haven't been like bombarded by me this whole time. So
no, you've been this beautiful little ray of sunshine every time I've come across you, and unfortunately it hasn't been that often, but that may change.
That may change with this whole coronavirus stuff. Well, before all of this coronavirus stuff, Abby was actually planning to move over here to Vancouver, and we were even looking at the prospects of living together. So hurry up, borders, and open so I can get this beautiful human over here. Oh, I can't wait. This needs to still happen. It's going to happen.
It will.
But obviously, how did I get to the point of feeling comfortable enough to live with this girl? Abby and I actually met back in Ireland before my accent changed and I sounded like this. We worked together. I don't know about you, but the place that I met you, like where we were working, I was at a point in my life where I was like, I'm never going to do a job like this. I'm never going to work in a call center. I'm never going to do this. This is so beneath me. But life just happened. And I'm like, do you know what? Amy, get off your high horse and just get a job and have an income. And I definitely feel like the universe puts things in your place at the time it's meant to be there. And this little blonde ray of sunshine just appeared in my team, and I kind of feel like from day one, like it was me, you, and then Alex just kind of clicked right away. Like the three of us were like this little
triple A.
Yep. Oh god, I miss her. We just clicked instantly, and like anybody who does know me very well, especially my friend circles, girls don't tend to gel with me well. Girls tend to not like me. I tend to get on with guys a lot better. But when I click,
nobody believes that, Amy.
No.
Everybody loves Amy.
I'm sure there's people in here that are like, nah, I hate her. Who's this bitch? Why does she think she's so great? Like typical people from Northern Ireland. Jesus. But yeah, I tend to not get on with girls, but when I do get on with them, we just click instantly and they become my family. Like you really do. It's a testament. 6 years later, we're still friends and we don't need to talk every day, but we're still super close and you're the best. And the reason I wanted to get Abby on is not only is she great in her career, this career is also a bit of a newer adventure to her. So she's definitely someone who has rewritten her own story and changed things up and gone after something that she's really passionate about and believes in. And in all honesty, I want to introduce you guys to people that I think can transform your life and can really support you. And the reason I know that Abby can do this is because she's did it in me. She was one of the people that I spoke to when I was planning on doing this whole podcast and planning that what I wanted to do. I just told her, like, I feel like I need to do this, but I don't know what or how or where to begin. And I remember calling her. I'm sure she can remember, like, anytime Amy messages her and she's like, hey, you free for a quick chat? It's like, it's never a quick chat. It's like several hours. And we had a call, I think it was about 2 hours long, and it was also just after she had a meeting with a client. So she'd already been working. The last thing she was expecting to do was hop into another working session, but it kind of turned into that, and she literally ignited a fire under me or within me, I guess. And that was a couple of weeks back. And now not only am I on fire, but everything around me, everything I touch is on fire too. So the fact that I have felt such a big shift, and that was just from a friendly conversation, I can't wait to see how she will affect you guys. And if any of you guys want to reach out to her for her services and get to know her, we'll cover that at the end and explain where she can be found and how you can get involved. But for now, I guess what I will, Abby, I guess I'll put it over to you. So you can explain to people what it is that you do, the kind of therapy that you offer, and what you're skilled at.
Okay. So I am a Rapid Transformational Therapy Practitioner.
Oh, that's a mouthful.
Or RTT.
That's easier for me. RTT. Keep it simple. So what does that stand for? What does that mean?
So rapid transformation is what it sounds like. It's fast, efficient change. And effectively what it is in your session, it is hypnotherapy. So I go directly to your subconscious and it's talk therapy from there. You are totally awake and responsive throughout the session, and we address past issues. We don't relive them, but we review them.
So is that kind of like the outward looking in?
So if I give you an example from one of my sessions, because we did some practice sessions, I went back. So you go into hypnosis, and then you go to an experience of your past. So I remember going back to my primary 2 classroom. So I was about 6.
Yeah.
For anybody not from Northern Ireland.
Oh yeah, primary versus grade. Yeah.
Yeah, P6. P2. I was in P2, age 6, and I was sitting beside a little boy. It was reading time, so I went over to sit beside this boy and read with him because I thought, this poor kid doesn't have anybody to read with. And we were only 6, bear with me here, so I was reading out loud.
Fair play.
But he was a very advanced kid and he was reading it into himself.
At that age, I couldn't even read. I still can't.
Right?
Dyslexic over here, if anybody can relate. Woo-woo.
So this was me trying to reach out and be a good friend because he was sitting all by himself. But what actually happened was he was way advanced and he did not want anybody's company because he was trying to read into himself.
Oh, burn.
So, like, this hasn't impacted me. I haven't thought about this ever since. But in hypnosis, I went back to this scene and he turned to me and he said, "Excuse me, can you read into yourself or go sit somewhere else?"
Damn.
And from there, my therapist was able to tell me, or my RTT practitioner was able to tell me that, I took that as rejection. I took that as I shouldn't reach out. I shouldn't put myself forward.
Yeah.
And I just had to reframe that. So in your RTT session, you go back to some very traumatic experiences and some very insignificant experiences, because throughout your life, you're building up these tiny little beliefs that are just building and building and creating not who we are, but how we feel about ourselves.
Yeah.
And you live on those beliefs forever without correcting them.
Oh my God, that's so accurate. That's so accurate. Like, I say things along the similar lines, but with you saying that we live those beliefs without recorrecting them, I'm like, that's the bit that I'm missing. When I try to explain something like this to people, that line is like golden. Because I always say to people, because some of my friends are like, "Oh, Amy, you're overly cautious," or "Why do you cross the street when this sort of scenario happens," or whatever. And I don't even notice I do it anymore, but it's like a defense mechanism, or it's like almost like my body's protection that it has built up due to circumstances I've been in the past.
That's exactly what it is. It's like the body's protecting you. The mind is protecting you. and it's creating the same programs, the same wiring as it did initially. What saved you back then will save you now, and it just keeps repeating those behaviors over and over again, even if they're no longer effective.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And you know, for getting you on to a podcast like this, you know, a lot of the listeners are going to be people who have went through trauma, difficult situations in their life. I know for me, I had to do what a lot of like what my therapist called inner child work, but it was pretty similar to what you're talking about. Like I would go back and talk to younger me and help me get out of that, like unlearn a lot.
Yeah. Totally reframe.
Yeah,
and
I would have, like, big thing for me would have been confidence, like internally, because of what I went through when I was a kid. I had a lot of shame around it. I wasn't allowed to speak about it, especially after confronting my mother. I had to keep everything a secret. And so as a child, I was taught not to speak up, to hide how I feel, people please, do everything you're told, be there for other people. So as a result, as an adult, I became a codependent person. Like my life revolved around other people. And then I also had pretty severe, I'd say, imposter syndrome. And that's the thing that we have you here to kind of talk about a bit more in depth of. I guess before I ramble on about how the imposter syndrome affected me as someone who lived through trauma, I'd love to hear a bit more how you explain imposter syndrome, because a few other listeners who are listening to this may not necessarily be people who went through crazy trauma in their life, but they could find themselves in this pattern. And I think it'd be really cool to hear kind of your breakdown on it and what it is.
Yeah. Okay. So when you and I first started talking about this, you asked me what I was experiencing most in my sessions with my clients. And I went to imposter syndrome immediately, because my clients a lot of them are very successful people, but they're just not seeing their success for what it is. And there's this consistent struggle between trying to be a success and pulling themselves back. They're waiting for the other shoe to drop. They think failure's around the corner. They think they're going to be found out as a fraud. So imposter syndrome is coming up a lot, but it's also just low confidence, low self-worth, low self-value. And it's all wrapped up in this same little package, and it's the same shift in beliefs again and again. So I guess what we're doing a lot of in these sessions is just empowering clients. It's mostly women at the minute. I've got a lot of women who just don't know their value.
Yeah,
who just
relate to that one.
completely doubt their abilities. And imposter syndrome is this, I've heard it described as a box. So you put yourself in this little box, and the edges are all defined by your imposter syndrome, and that just completely restricts you. And the longer you stay in that box, the more it defines you. And it's harder and harder to move out and move away from that.
I love that. And when you say like you're in this box and you've got your imposter syndrome walls built,
yeah,
what would those walls be made of? Are these walls the case of when people are saying, no, I'm not good enough, I'm gonna be found out, or is this a different persona? What would you say that if you're someone who's listening right now and they feel like they're resonating with a little of what you're saying, like what would make them go, oh, that's what that is, like I'm saying that? Does that make sense? I feel like I'm rambling.
Yeah. No, I get it.
What would those walls be made of?
So they're saying it's I'm not enough. And that's actually the cornerstone of this whole RTT thing. I am not enough, because that's everybody's struggle. So it's I'm not enough. It's a ceiling on your successes. You think, I'm really good at what I do. but I'm only going to get this far. And you just restrict it back and back, and you compare yourself to others. Like, I'm good, I can do a lot, but I'll never be in their shoes. I'll never achieve as much as they will. You just
Why do you think we as humans, and like you say, most of your clients are women, I hate to be gender specific, or
it applies to both, but it's women coming forward so far.
Yeah, and I really hope that shifts. I know, like, a lot of women have these conversations, and a lot of guys tend to not, because they're told to be men, and that's, again, a whole other podcast. I'll get into that in another topic. But it's the reason we're talking about these things, to help change the stigma around all of this. But what do you feel is the core thing? Because you're seeing this in a lot of your clients, and I'm sure you may have even felt like this at one point in your life. I know I definitely did.
Constantly.
It's not who I am now, but I definitely did. Why do you think, from your professional opinion, why do you think that people feel this way? Why do you think our brains go this way? Why we even, put ourselves into this position, and we become absorbed and built up our walls, and next minute we're in our imposter box? How do you think this happens?
It's just easy. It's comfortable. Stepping into our stretch zone, out of our comfort zone, is uncomfortable. And we have such fear of failure, fear of rejection. And we know that within our tiny confines, we know what we're doing. And if we stay in our tiny confines and we work with our control, then life will be easy. It won't be perfect, and will not reach the potential that we know we have, but we know it's safe.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So the clients that are coming to me, they're facing this struggle because they know what they can do, and they're just feeling stuck.
Oh my gosh, I guarantee that's going to click with so many people that are listening to this. This was definitely me a while back. You kind of, I don't know, especially those people who are listening that live in Northern Ireland. Where we live, where I lived, where I grew up, where Abby lives, especially when you grow up in Northern Ireland, as soon as you want to be different, as soon as you want something more, as soon as you strive to be better, as soon as you stand out, you are instantly crushed. Who does she think she is? Oh, look at her. She thinks she's great. She loves herself. They are phrases I heard my whole life. And to me, they were such a negative. They made me go from feeling so big to this small. Like,
absolutely. And for those listening that are not from Northern Ireland, that's not just behavior that we're feeding from people who are rejecting us. That's also coming from our family and friends. Like, oh, we don't big ourselves up. No, we don't do that. Stay humble.
Yeah, don't draw attention to yourself. Keep quiet.
Exactly.
Don't stand out. I remember, thankfully it wasn't a thing in my household, but it definitely was a thing with my grandparents, that children should be seen and not heard. That's definitely kind of the I don't know, is it ancestral guilt, or it's kind of the thing we pick up from our ancestors on how to behave and how you should do. Definitely, this is a fitting in versus belonging, and we'll, again, I'm sure, do a whole episode and unpack that topic. But it's conforming, doing what you're told rather than what's within you. And I think if you do that for long enough, of course you're going to end up in this imposter syndrome. You don't know your thoughts, you're conditioned this way. And this is so applicable to everybody. Like I said in earlier on episodes, this podcast isn't just for people who've gone through abuse. Like what Abby and I are talking about right now is just general life things that you've picked up from your surroundings and your community, not because of trauma. You add trauma in, and then it's a whole other whirlwind to really unpack. But these things happen to everybody. I've definitely even been in relationships with people who were unmotivated, who couldn't be successful, never even wanted to strive for more. And then it took a bit of work and unpacking of things to kind of realize that was their environment. They were in a family that just were happy with going along. And then all of a sudden, they're like, you know what, I want more for my life. And I think especially for people like yourself and I, Abby, and anybody else listening who have moved away, who have lived in other parts of the world, you can see how other communities in other parts of the world perceive these things. Like now, for instance, when if I'm in here in Vancouver, and like I've these, I can't explain how great my friendship circle is right now. And that's not even just my friends that are here, like just the people I have in my life, you included. I've like stripped all that back to literally only have people in my life that add value to my life and bring me joy. And the people that I have came across since living here in Vancouver, now, yes, they will say to me, oh my God, Amy, you're amazing. You think you're amazing. They will say the same words that the arseholes back in Ireland said to me, but it's with so much love. Like, Amy,
yes,
you're doing this and you actually believe in yourself. You believe that you're going to do well at this. You believe this is amazing. I want to get on that level. This is great. Oh my gosh, Amy, you have so much love for yourself. You love yourself. And I'm like, yeah, I do. Like, where
you wear it proudly there.
Yeah, rewind. And I think it also helps when you've got a Canadian accent saying it and not a Belfast one. Oh, you love yourself, don't you, love? You know, it's much different than, oh, you love yourself. But it's true. Like, and, you know, I'm sure there's some of you guys that maybe are listening that did grow up in Canada and did get told these things, and but in the opposite, you know, it wasn't just the Belfast accent that made it a horrible thing to listen to. And I'm not saying this is a Canada thing. Like I'm you know, it's definitely a you thing. Like you know, there's arseholes no matter where you live in the world. But I feel like once you realize that you are worth more and you want better people in your life, and you do the work to bring those better people in your life, you start to see those shifts and those differences. But for me, I know I definitely struggled with the imposter syndrome for a long time. Like, I've always been different. Like, even as a kid, I was different. I don't know if that was a good or bad thing. Some of you guys listening will, I'm sure, have your own opinions. But I definitely was. Like, a lot of people who know me now and knew me when I was a kid would have always said, Amy, you're so confident. You like know what you want and stuff. But I'd say for me to fully be confident and fully love me, that came way after I started therapy. That came way after I started unpacking all of this, learning it, unlearning. So like I feel like I really struggled with the whole imposter syndrome side of things, and I never really got through it until way after therapy, like way after. And I'm still do therapy. Like, therapy's amazing. Anybody who doesn't do it, I highly recommend it. Whether you went through trauma or not, like the stuff that Abby and I were talking about have just been everyday things to do with your upbringing. It's really good to unlearn some of that stuff and just embrace you.
And it doesn't have to be a long term either.
Yeah. And I definitely do therapy now in bursts. Like, when I first went to therapy for my trauma, it was long and intensive and heavy, really heavy. And I almost had to relive some of this stuff to unlearn it. But I know your kind of approach is different, which I think is very healthy, especially if you're going through trauma. The last thing you want to do is relive it. And for me, when I went through therapy, I had to relive it, and it put me in one of the darkest parts of my life. And it was almost worse reliving it than it was at the time, because I was reliving it as an adult with knowledge, knowing what it was. And scary, so scary. So if that's something that's maybe put you off going into therapy or getting counseling, maybe looking at something like an approach that what Abby offers might be what fits you better. It sounds like it's a bit more of a safe place. I've definitely experienced things that are somewhat parallel to them and to this approach, and it's been great. So that could be an avenue. But to get back into the imposter syndrome side of things, I know for me on the outside I would have looked one way, and internally I was a completely different person. And it actually got to a point in my life where I couldn't even decide what I wanted to wear, or if I was buying clothes, shopping, I couldn't even think for myself. I was so reliant on other people to do that for me, because I was conditioned that way my whole life, to do what other people say, to do what other people tell me, live my life for others. I'm what I like to call, as Mark Grove says, a recovering codependent. And if you don't listen to Mark Groves, give him a listen. He's freaking amazing. Anyway, side note. But I didn't know my own thoughts, and in all honesty, I started to see big shifts in my life. I'd say maybe 3 years ago, like just after I started traveling and went off to see the world, I was started to become very purposeful. Like you said at the start of this, you know, making decisions, putting out what you want, and honing into that. And I started to do that. I cut people out of my life. I cut a parent out of my life. I started, you know, talking to certain toxic friends less, and started to see those shifts. But I'd honestly say it's the last year where I finally feel like I've got out of my imposter syndrome box. And it's taken a lot of work, like hell, to get there.
So I think it's nearly even moved away from imposter syndrome, but I think that's to come full circle. Moving away from imposter syndrome is embracing you. That's where you want to be. You want to embrace you for exactly who you are, and you need to know who you are, and that's difficult. It can be difficult.
So what kind of things do you work on with your clients to get them to that point? Like you kind of realize, okay, you can put a name to it, you living with imposter syndrome. So how do you, with your work and what you do, get them from the imposter syndrome part to the feeling free and embracing you? And obviously this is I'm sure a long process, but through your therapy, it is rapid. So I'd love to know what your like key milestones are, and like how you kind of break that down from people who are listening right now who are thinking, oh my God, this is me, but I'm never going to get there. They have all this negativity, but they want to get here. What are your tips and tricks, without obviously going into too much, because this is all individual, like depending on the individual, but I'd love to know a bit more.
So I never, even though I've chosen this subject, I would never label anybody with imposter syndrome. Or with anything really. Each session is very personalized and individual, and they maybe come to me with their symptoms, and that could be public speaking, it could be a phobia or fear of something, it could be a codependent relationship. It could be anything at all. And once you unpack that and come back to the root cause of that, quite often it is, I'm not enough. Quite often it is self-esteem or value. And it's just reinforcing that you have just as much right as anybody else to fulfill your potential. You were put on this world for a reason, and we're going to drill down and find out this. We're going to drill down and find your strength and your power.
And how do you get them to do that? Like, is this, and obviously it's going to be different for everybody, which I'm sure is probably a really annoying question for me to ask you here. I'm like, what's the secret? Because it's a good person that, like, without, obviously I don't want you to disclose any of your clients and their stories, but like if someone's listening to this and they are totally lost and they haven't a clue and they're resonating with what you're saying, obviously go speak to someone, maybe even Abby. How do you get someone to open up and do that work?
Okay, so I have the life coaching qualification as well, which is what you're talking about, setting homework, setting tasks to do your own self-development. RTT is a little more invasive. So you have the initial session, and that is your hypnotherapy, your talk therapy under hypnosis. And that lasts about 1.5 to 2 hours. We find the underlying issues. We rewire, we reframe the beliefs behind that, and we set the intention for who you want to be. And then I make a recording for my clients, which they listen to in the next 21 to 30 days.
Ooh, and would you advise that they listen to it repetitively? Or
yeah. So at least once a day under hypnosis, and I'm available to my clients throughout those 30 days. So I will find a lot of my clients can do it in one session. Some need 2 or 3. And some will come back. You know, you fix my fear of flying. Let's look at public speaking. But for one issue, it's often 1 to 3 sessions, and I'm available for the whole whole follow-up.
That's amazing. I love that. And that's another thing for people out there that think, yeah, I do have some childhood trauma I need to unpack, or I am living in this kind of imposter syndrome, if we want to give it a name, way of behaving, but I don't have time. I'm such a busy professional. I don't have time for therapy. I just about have time to have like a shower and eat. I definitely, at one point in my life, I was genuinely someone that had to put in her calendar when she was going to eat. And I ran myself like out so badly, to the point I ended up with like a heart problem. Like I properly just damaged myself. I was, hand on heart, one of those people that said, I don't have time. But you need to make time for you.
You need to. And you'll find that you make so much time for negative self-talk. Like you have all the time in the world for that.
100%. So if you are one of those people that are thinking, yes, this sounds like me, oh my gosh, I want to unpack this, I want to try to rewrite my story and get out of this funk and start loving me and go and explore this kind of work, maybe RTT is for you. It's not gonna take up as much of time as therapy, like long horrible therapy sessions. I've been there. But you need to also want to do the work. Like Abby said, you also have your work. It's not just the 2-hour session that you have with her. You have to then listen to this every day, empower it, believe it, and she's there to support you. But if you're someone who likes to listen to podcasts when you're on the go, if you're someone who likes to listen to music when you're traveling, that's when you can maybe listen back to your therapy session. Like, if you're, I don't know, drying your hair, or instead of watching Netflix for an hour and filling your brain with nonsense, listen back to your therapy session. You can, this kind of therapy, this kind of approach sounds like something that's so beautifully fit into a working person's life.
It does. I will say that you need to listen to your recording under hypnosis. So no driving, probably no hair drying, stuff like that.
I don't know what I'm talking about. Like I said, this is why I get the professionals on, because I don't have a clue.
But I do listen to it at night so that I can have the hypnosis session, the subliminal session at night. But I'll also listen to it consciously on my drive to work or while I'm drying my hair. I always have to have my brain going. So it's nice to listen to that on a conscious level too, because subconsciously those words are going in, they're sinking in, the changes are being made, but it doesn't hurt to hear them consciously as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love that. And that's also probably a good way to do it at nighttime. Well, obviously you're the professional, so you're like, Amy, yeah, it's the best way to do it. I'm like, yeah,
or morning.
Probably. But like for me, and I don't know other people, but when I was definitely at the peak of my super busy career focus, didn't have time, I also struggled with sleep and like switching off for the day. Where if you were to get into that state of hypnosis and go into something like that, I imagine you would feel more in a relaxed state, and that might even help you to kind of drift off. What's your personal opinion?
So I've had very few people come to me for sleep issues, but a lot of them have that feedback. They didn't come for that, but that's a beautiful side effect.
Oh, awesome.
So I'm getting that. And I think I have to say that so far as imposter syndrome and when we've had it and how our culture changes it, I've definitely gotten into all of the self-development thing from working and living in America. And when I moved home, I really struggled to, to sort of stand up and say, this is me, I'm working on myself. Don't mind me, but I'm paying attention to myself.
Yeah. People think it's weird in Northern Ireland.
They do. So I must say that I am facing this imposter syndrome myself constantly. And it's not that I'm still in that box, but I'm still aware of the box. Just before this call, I got a testimonial sent through. And she called me a role model. And I thought, really? And she said she listens to her, she's a therapist in a different sense, but she says before she treats any of her patients, she listens to this before her sessions. And that just builds me up so much, but a part of me just wants to go, no, that's not real. So you have to be aware that everybody has this in different, in varying scenarios, and it's just about being aware that it's negative and just moving past it. We don't need to listen to every thought that comes into our head.
I love that. And it's also knowing where that thought comes from, your upbringing and where you grew up and kind of what you're told. But those people who aren't awake don't challenge that, and they just accept nah. Or what we want to do is get these listeners and the people who are out there to get to the point where they're like, don't listen to that bullshit, embrace the good, you are freaking awesome. Oh yeah. And you are, dude. Like, and I even said at the start of this podcast, and I'm sure you were cringing a little inside, but you have, I've felt the shifts in my life just from having you being a part of it. I've loved watching your journey. Like, even when I first met Abby, she herself was so much more quiet than what she is now. A little more reserved. She's still not as open as I am. I'm just like,
nope.
Not many people are as, I don't know, harsh, or what's the right word for the way I am? Like bold, I don't know. Like I'm just out
You're
there.
bold.
Yeah.
You're bold. I'm blunt, but I'm not bold.
But you can be, and you do have elements of it. But when we first met, Abby was definitely very, very quiet and very sweet and very caring, and still is all of those things. But I've definitely seen you blossom and go on this journey, and I'm just like, you know, if I need a kick up my ass, but also that positivity and like get pushed in the right direction, she's the one I call. Like, she definitely is. And that's why I had to get her on this podcast. I had to get you guys to hear how this woman thinks, what she does. It's amazing. It's just beautiful.
So if anybody hears that I'm giving Amy a kick up the ass and now she's on fire and they're thinking, oh, well, that's Amy, you know, this bright, vibrant lady who can do anything, just remember that I'm not her strength. I'm not her power. I'm her cheerleader, and she has all of that inside her, and so do all of you. So it's just about helping you bring your own strength forward.
I love that. And I think I actually said that in episode 1, like, I'm not here to give you the tools. I'm here to help you uncover those tools.
Yeah.
And that's,
you have everything that you need in life already there.
It's so easy. It makes you wonder, why does everybody not just do this and be them and not settle and just live their life for them? Like, oh, it's so easy, and I want everybody to get there. I do. It's, sorry, I'm having such a little freak out. Normally I'm more on my podcast.
You're all good. I think that's the thing about self-development, though. Like, every self-help book that you read, it's the same stuff over and over again. And I'm going back to diet because it's such an easy example for me. Eat right and exercise. Like, we all know that. We've all heard it 100 times. It's not that we don't know what the experts say. It's not that we don't know what's healthy for us. We just can't put it into practice. And it takes different methods, different wording to let that sink in. And hopefully this podcast is helping it sink in. But it's easy. The journey might be difficult, but it's easy. You already have everything that you need.
I love it. And that's like Abby said, she's my cheerleader. She may not even be my head cheerleader, but she's up there. She's up there for sure. And that's again a testament to showing the kinds of people you can have in your life. I would genuinely say my whole friendship circle, every single one of my friends in my core friendship circle are cheerleaders, like 100%. One of the kinds of conversations you and I have right now in this podcast is how I talk to the majority of my friends, pretty much all of my friends. We don't talk about the weather and stuff anymore. It's like hardcore life and what are your goals to achieve this week? And but it's amazing, and it shifts your life so much. I cannot explain. Like, and we'll definitely get into unpacking a bit more of my story around this stuff in other episodes. What was that shift in you? What was that turning point for you that made you feel, not only this is something I want to do, but this is something I have to do, and then you put it into action?
Yeah. So I started with itchy feet, which took me to America. And I was an au pair there. I was very grateful for all of the input that I got
And just to clarify, when we say itchy feet, we don't mean like you've got a verruca or something there and you're giving it a good old scratch. Like,
Oh, that's not a global thing.
I don't know. I think it isn't. But, you know, just to clarify, we don't mean she actually had an itchy foot. Like she felt this calling and had to go and do something. Just as a clarification. Maybe
I had to
everybody
go.
knows, but yeah.
I had to go. I had to be somewhere else. I didn't feel uplifted where I was. I didn't feel supported. Like Amy has these amazing friends, and I think that's just because she has such strength in who she is that she attracts them. And I couldn't grow and have that strength within myself where I was, and I didn't have that friend group. But anyway, so I moved to America to be an au pair, and just the effect of the people around me was brilliant. That led me to podcasts, self-development, life coaching qualification, and
but what even got you to the point of wanting to do your qualification? Because a lot of people, they listen to the podcast, they do the self-development, and they maybe have people in their life that say, you know, oh, you should create a podcast like I did, or you should be a therapist. You're great at it. Like, what got you to the point to then, like, was it people that were telling you should do it? Did you feel called to do it? Was this something you manifested out into the world to say, I am going to be a therapist, and you got there? Like, what got you to the point of doing the training?
So I left San Francisco, moved back home, and I just felt stuck. My life had just paused, and I didn't know where to move. I didn't know what to do.
Taste for something more, and then you went back to reality, and you're like,
yeah,
I want that cool thing back again.
Yeah, like I was prepping. My kids, my host kids in America for college and for their future, and then I was moving home, and the restrictions just seemed to come down, and my whole life just seemed to limit itself. And I'd heard about life coaching when I was in America, and I hired a life coach here. And, you know, she kept trying to encourage me towards things, and it just wasn't feeling right. And what I really thought was, I need to sit on your seat. I need to do what you're doing. And I love the coaching. I love the environment. But again, we don't have the customer base for it in Northern Ireland. And I was still feeling stuck this time last year when I was listening to a podcast about Marissa Peer, who is the founder of RTT. And she said this amazing thing, that her mind is her best friend, and it's the best PA that she will ever have. And I thought, what the frick? Like, my mind doesn't do that. I am so distracted. I'm not focused at all. And I need that in my life. And I didn't even have an RTT session. I just signed right up. I thought I need to dig deep, get myself surrounded in this stuff.
That's awesome. It does take, I find anyway, it does take those small moments in your life. And it could be something so small as just listening to someone who's a founder of something, talking about what they do, and you're like, oh, I have to do that. I have to get certified and embody this, and this is my calling. That's the thing.
Absolutely.
We just overcomplicate these things. And I totally agree with what you say on, well, I agree with everything you say. I'm just like, she's amazing. Like, keep talking. Like, oh.
Thank you very much.
But I totally agree with you with saying about the market for back home. Like, there's just isn't much of that market. And I hope that it becomes more of a thing back home. I'm definitely noticing it is.
There's a change.
When I started telling friends that I'm doing this, some of them actually started telling me, you know, Amy, I've thought about doing therapy.
Yeah.
I'm like, amazing. We have never had a conversation like this in the 20 years that I have known you. And now all of a sudden I'm like, wow, there's substance, but we're just so scared. And it's not just a Northern Irish thing. Like, we're, especially when it comes to someone you grew up with, who knew a certain version of you, you're then, you just, for whatever reason, you don't want to be that person. And it's boastful. You don't want to be the one saying, oh yeah, I'm amazing. You don't want, and then on the other side of that, you don't want to be the person to ask for help or admit that you're getting help. But we should. This is having these conversations normalizes all of this. Yes, some forms of therapy may not be huge back in Northern Ireland, but they can be. The more people that start to speak about it, the more people that seek help, it can be. We have the power as individuals, as you listening, as Abby and I sitting here, to achieve it, to make these things happen, to have better relationships with people around us, with our coworkers, with the work that we have, but more importantly, have the better relationship with you and yourself.
That's the important bit.
It's huge. Oh, and I love this. So if you've listened to this and you hear Abby's story and you're hearing about the offerings that she has, and you're thinking, do you know what? I'd love to have a chat with her. I think I'm someone who has not enough free time, and this kind of therapy would be something that I would really be interested in hearing more about. How do they get in touch with you?
So the website's probably the easiest. Abigail Jayne, ABIGAILJAYNE.com. You can book your sessions through there. I would recommend that we do a quick chat beforehand, and you can book that through the website, or you can send me an email, and that's abi59@me.com. Love to hear from any of you, whatever symptoms you're going through. If you just want to hear a little bit more about it, please get in touch.
Awesome. That's amazing. And I definitely encourage you to do so. All of Abby's services are online. So this isn't just restricted to people who are in Northern Ireland. You can definitely access it from wherever you are in the world. So definitely reach out to her. And for those who are wanting to follow Abby on her journey, if you're more of a social media person, you maybe want to follow someone first and watch what they're at before you reach out to them. I know I definitely am. I like to do my detective work. Her social media is coming up shortly, so I will put the link to that in the description for you guys if you do want to hop on and give her a little creep. We all love Jesus. Just admit it. It's a thing. But thank you so much, Abby, for coming on. You've been my first guest. Woohoo! And I'm sure I'll have you back again. There's so many other topics that we almost started jumping into on this call, which I'm sure people listening would love to hear. And for those guys listening, if there is anything from Abby's background, especially given what the RT that she does, that you would love to know more about, if you have any questions on, please feel free to reach out to me here as well. I can definitely get her in touch with you. And if you want her back to talk about anything in a bit more depth, certainly reach out to me, let me know. A lot of you guys who listen to me all the time know you can find me at rewriteyourstory.ca on Instagram, Facebook, my website, and also YouTube. It's the same across all platforms, so definitely reach out if you would like to have Abby back, if you want to hear us talk about another topic, or if you just have questions, slide on into my DMs and we will get chatting. But thank you for listening this far. And thank you, Abby, for being here. It's been a wonderful experience, and I can't wait to have you on again in the future.
Yay! Thank you.
Awesome, guys. Tune in next week, and we'll have another conversation then. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Rewrite Your Story podcast. It would truly mean the world to me if you could subscribe and leave a review on whatever streaming platform you listen to this on. Leave a written review, a 5-star review. It truly helps to get this into the ears of those who really need to hear it. If you're not already a member of the Rewrite Your Story community, you can find us at rewriteyourstory.ca on Facebook, Instagram, and our website. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week. Bye.